Hagmann Hagmann report for today. It's Friday, January 30th, 2015. I'm Doug Hagmann in studio with my son, fellow investigator, fellow researcher Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann Hagmann report, folks. You're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in 3D. We look well beyond the headlines and the bylines and the fog of misdirection, misinformation, just to bring you the news, behind the news, what propels the news. New listeners, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Our home base on the internet is hagmannandhagmann.com. Please bookmark that site. There you can get to the newest or the live program all the time on the right-hand side. Also, you can visit various links we have from our homepage. Portions of tonight's broadcast, I'm very proud to be associated with healthmasters.com. You know, Ted Broer, he's going to be on the 6th of next Friday, a week from today. He's going to be on as a special guest. Folks, if you haven't used any of his products or read any of his articles, you've got to do so. And I just love talking to Ted. He's a man of incredible intellect. He used to be on the speaker circuit with luminaries. I mean, celebrities, politicians and such. But he stopped doing that for a reason. But today, I think he's perhaps one of the most intelligent and well-informed men I know. And that's Ted Broer. He's a great guy.
He knows his stuff.
Absolutely. So tonight, go to healthmasters.com, bookmark that site, and certainly the products are the highest quality nutritional supplements available. I'm convinced of that. Now, I've taken a lot of nutritional supplements in my life, but I've never had the benefits from, well, for example, the cinnamon extract, the turmeric and such. I've never had the potency of the B vitamin. If you want to, I was telling my wife, I said, man, there is something in the B vitamins that it's like a shot of adrenaline almost. I mean, it's really great, but it doesn't have that crashing feeling, of course, afterwards. I would take that over Starbucks coffee or whatever kind of coffee you might drink. So, healthmasters.com. Our good friend Ted Broer, he's going to be on next Friday. Definitely mark your date books for that. We are going to be talking about a number of things. It's just Joe and I tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks for your belief and trust in us. Joe, it's good to have you in the studio. Before we get too far, I want to address something that I think we need to address.
Sure.
But, I'll address it right now. First and foremost, I hope everyone had a chance to tune in last night. Perhaps one of the most stirring, in-depth programs last night by Rebecca Roth, methodicalillusion.com. That's methodicalillusion.com. If you haven't listened to that yet, please do so. Make a note to do so. What a great lady. What a fantastic show. I've gotten so many emails today about that show. Just so many emails.
Yeah, me too. I know the ones we see together, the studio ones, but in my own personal email, I got lots of great response.
Absolutely. I listened. I listened to the show. I'm sorry. I listened to the broadcast that she had early on. John Wells, other venues, and frankly, I'll tell you something. I just was moved by what she said, by the way she said it, by her delivery, by her spirituality. It was just incredible. We also have here momentarily John, a friend of the show, and you're going to recognize his voice, John, coming on here momentarily. He put together. Well, I'm just going to tell you this. In fact, let's do this now.
They did this. They started and organized, put together a initiative that will help anybody out there feeling lonely, anybody out there feeling like they need a fellowship on a one-on-one level. This is a system that helps people who need help help themselves by helping others.
Well, that's it. I was talking to John today, and here's the outline, the thumbnail sketch. We come on the air and we say, you're not alone. And you might feel lonely, or you might be alone within your family. You're never alone, because we're there, to support you. We're there to stand by your side, to uplift you, hopefully in a proper fashion. But in all practicality, how do we do that? How have we done that? Have we done that? Have we done that? Sorry, my voice is cracking. I'm going through puberty, I guess. Have we done that? And if not, what more can be done? Well, our sponsors, American Survival Wholesale and Honest to Goodness Toffee, John, and other people that we know personally. I'm not talking about some shadowy figure somewhere. No, I'm talking about people that we know, we've met in person, we've spent time with, we understand. We've met their families. We did everything but take their fingerprints. We know these people.
Yeah.
Okay. They put together an initiative. It's really, we'll just call it the Hagmann Kitchen Table, Hagmann and Hagmann Kitchen Table. And
I just want to stress, this is all free. There's no money by anybody being put in here or being made by anybody on any side.
I talked to John earlier today, and he and the owners of American Survival Wholesale and Honest to Goodness Toffee put the finishing touches on this initiative. And John is joining us here right now to discuss the logistics of practicalities of this initiative, what it is. And I just want to make sure that people understand this. This is a free and open service to people who want to meet other like-minded people. This isn't a matchmaking service. It's not a dating service. It's not a calling of personal information. This is a very strict, and I mean strict, heavily monitored. When I say monitored, I'm talking about to make sure that there's the people that, if you wish to become involved, you do so, and you'll talk to a real person. You'll share your location information willingly if you want to, and perhaps develop a network. Now, folks, you're going to have to place some trust in us in order to do this. We selected, or I shouldn't say we selected. It's kind of like saying, we went out and rescued a dog. Well, no, like you pick up a dog at the pound or at the kennel that would be otherwise put to sleep. No, it's almost like they rescue us, and that's kind of the way I feel in my heart of hearts, I suppose, with respect to American Survival Wholesale and Jeannie, John, and others. They really have enriched our lives so much in so many ways, and for them to take their time out to do this. So this is something extremely, extremely great. And again, Joe, you can bring John on anytime, but John is going to be with us now, or John is with us now to explain the mechanics.
And John, if you could press 1, and if you're in the queue. I don't see him lined up to come on yet.
Yeah.
But I see his number. All right. Yeah, that was his number.
All right.
All right.
We're gonna bring John on. John's going to explain the mechanics of this initiative. Folks, please pay attention, and please, this is really something that we struggled with, and we thought, let's do this because time is getting short. So, what better way to maybe make some connections as to have people we know, reputable people, create this, and we can facilitate this. So, John, welcome tonight, sir.
Oh, thank you so much, Doug and Joe, and thank you for such a good, solid introduction. I hopefully it's piqued the interest of all of our Hagmann and Hagmann family members, really at this point, gentlemen, all over the world.
Really? Yeah.
And what I'd like to do, if I may, I have to apologize in advance. I do not have a King James here in the car, I have to confess. I have a New Living Translation Bible. But what I'd like to do with your permission, Doug, is suggest that folks grab a pen and a scrap of paper, grab a pencil, crayon, anything you've got.
Sure.
And I'm going to just give them a second to do that by just reading a real quick piece of scripture here. And again, this is from the NLT. But this is Matthew 25, verse 37 through verse 40. Then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. And Doug and Joe, that's really the spirit that we're coming forward with here tonight. What we want to do, American Survival Wholesale, Honest to Goodness Toffee, and just a core team of old school Hagmann listeners and friends of the show, we want to give people the opportunity to begin to actually form and strengthen this family through a very simple networking process. And so I'd like to speak quickly about how we came up with this idea. I want to give credit where credit's due. It started really with Chance, because Chance, the owner of American Survival Wholesale, I started volunteering with the company about a year ago. And I noticed something right away. I would go in and help, pack orders and stuff like that, just when I had a free day here and there. And I noticed that when veterans would call, oftentimes, and regular folks too, civilians as well, but a lot of veterans would call, and they didn't necessarily need to order anything. They just needed someone to talk to. And invariably, without fail, Chance would stop what he was doing, like literally stop in front of a half-packed box, and he'd walk away. And he would witness to and minister to and just visit with these people really for as long as they needed. And that's where the beginning of this idea started, gentlemen.
Fantastic.
It's something. It's really something to see. So I just wanted to kind of start there. And so, folks, here's what it is. If you so choose, the first step in participating in this venture is to simply go to the following email account. It is hhconnections@startmail.com. Again, that's for Hagmann and Hagmann, connections, plural, connections, @startmail.com. And what will happen is anyone who, something we've, let me back up for a minute. Something we've noticed over the past 3 years or so is that a lot of the folks that call in have really touched our hearts, all of us here on the West Coast team. And, we hear often people say to either Joe or yourself, Doug, they say, I don't get out much during the day, or, I'm kind of in the house here, or I'm recovering from an injury, or I'm a veteran, I just got back and I'm not running with the old gang anymore. And I just look forward to these 3 hours of this day. It's like my visiting. You guys are my friends. And I thought, well, we should all just be friends. And what better way to do that than to give these folks the opportunity to reach out directly to us, directly to Chance from American Survival Wholesale, and myself and Jeannie from Honest to Goodness Toffee. And there's a whole little core team of us. And drop us an email, again, at hhconnections@startmail.com. And if the listeners so choose, they can either leave an email address and we can correspond via email, or if they'd prefer a more personal interaction, just give us a good contact number and a good time to call, and let's start making new friends. And then phase 2 of this is once we begin to isolate regions where we know 3 or 4 people live within a reasonable distance of one another, and this is a very important part, with mutual permission, with consent from both parties, we will then connect those people so that if they so choose, they can begin interacting with one another, kind of like the Hagmann's Heroes do.
Right. And John, if I can interject something here. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not come to this quickly. We looked at all aspects of this initiative the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, the potential for bad, the potential for good, and as we look at ourselves in this journey that we're taking, we've got to, at some point, we've got to stop straddling the microphones and behind the keyboards, and we've got to actually take a chance to make a difference. And we've seen so many, taking a chance. And so again, we did not arrive at this. And John will tell you that, sometimes I just crawled in a cave and went dark for a while. Well, talking to attorneys, talking to law firms. Yeah, you did.
We came in and found you.
But a lot of work went into, okay, what's the legal ramifications? What if the worst case happens? Somebody turns into a real Class A stalker, idiot type thing. But you know what? That's rather insulting to our audience. But it's a fact of life that something could happen. But the bottom line is this: Chance, the American Tribal Wholesale, Honest Goodness Toffee, John, the oversight of this is such that it's incredible. Number one, and number two, you're not forced to do anything. You're not forced to give up any personal information. It's just a way, just a way of communication. So go ahead, John. I didn't mean to. I just want to push that home.
Thank you for that, Doug. Let's talk about that for a moment, because unfortunately we do live in, well, I think we may be living in the end days of the age of man, but so of course part of that is that there are so many just ne'er-do-well characters of the internet trolls, the frauds. I mean, they're out there everywhere. So we did what we could, because this is just a real simple initiative, like you said, or an outreach. So we built in as much security as we could without making it cost prohibitive. So if I may, I'll just tell the folks quickly what steps we've taken so that they feel comfortable reaching out to us. And keep in mind, folks, that really what we want to do is talk with you. We just want, if you want to talk about scripture you read earlier in the day, if you heard something on Drudge Report or True News or Caravan to Midnight or the Hagmanns that freaked you out, give us a call. Myself and Chance and Jeannie, believe me, folks, we study this stuff all day, every day. So we're the people that can definitely converse with you about whatever's on your mind. Now, that being said, how do we do this securely? First of all, Doug and Joe have full personal oversight of this email account. They have the access codes. They can, at any time they choose, take a look at the interactions that are going on. And hopefully, I know you guys are terribly busy, but hopefully once in a while you might just get a call from Doug or Joe or an email, because they're going to be monitoring this effort as well. So that's number one. In as much as you trust the Hagmanns and the information they provide every night, Doug and Joe will be, managing a high level of oversight over the project. Number two, we are using, folks, a fairly new company called StartMail. But StartMail is very unique. It was designed by Catherine Albrecht and her team. Many of you may know her. She is considered the RFID lady. She's been on True News a number of times. And what StartMail is, it's the most secure email system in the United States. It's 4 walls of military-grade encryption, and most importantly, Doug and Joe, the servers are in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands does not have a data-sharing treaty with the United States. So nobody's looking at StartMail except the Hagmann family and Joe and yourself.
Right. That's right.
So hopefully, does that cover the security aspect a little bit?
I think it does. And we would be naive. All of us would be naive to think that our email is not being read, maintained. And, the security, yes, is extremely heavy. Now, you're going to have, the NSA and other government agencies that are able to capture, what you type on your computer. However, I think John and I think the principals in this initiative have done their homework extensively, and at least would make it would be very difficult for any type of information to be tracked via start mail. So in other words, you're going to be vulnerable at your home base, but not via the system. So
that's exactly right, Doug. That's exactly right. Now, if I may for a moment, I just want to specify once again where our hearts are on this thing. Because really, well, I'm going to, this is anecdotal, but I'll lay it on you anyway. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, a woman called in the third hour, and it was just the most moving. She shared with us so openly and sincerely, and I don't know if you gentlemen recall, but her brother was on life support. I believe her name was Joan, if I remember correctly. And she said at one point in her sharing with us, and she was so brave, she was so strong. This woman was a warrior, and she was speaking of things that, I was starting to feel emotional listening to her.
Yeah, she was on John. She was on life support, ladies and gentlemen, or he was on life support. Her brother was while they harvested his organs, for transplant in other people. He was brain dead, and she called, and it was a very moving phone call. And out of respect for her, boy, that's just a very personal thing to go through. So, but go ahead, John.
Well. Exactly, and normally I wouldn't even speak of another caller like this, but it was a huge part of what motivated us to finally jump in the saddle and say, you know what, we got to do this, let's go. She said, and this is almost verbatim, folks, she said, and her voice began to quiver. It was the only time that she began to really, she was holding it together. She was real brave, but she said, all day long, I've just really needed somebody to talk to. And I was sitting on the side of the road in my car. I almost started, and that's the moment when I said, okay, I'm going to take time away from my work schedule each day. We're going to get this account open. We're going to put the team together, and we are going to go boots on the ground to reach out to all the Hagmann and Hagmann family members and give you folks a simple tool. Reach out to us, and we will connect with you. And we like to joke here in L.A. We sit in about 20 hours of traffic a week anyway, so we might as well make new friends on the phone.
I'm not. If it's not traffic in L.A., it's snow in the Northeast. So I get you. Yes.
Well, that segues nicely into one of the last aspects I want to be sure to cover, Doug and Joe, which is this. Now, this is a developing project. We're hoping that we hear from our, as I said, folks that are shut in, that are infirm, widows and widowers, veterans, and especially our elderly. We folks, our more senior listeners, we love you so much. You are the elders of our e-church, and we're so blessed when you folks call in and share your wisdom of years with us. We want to hear from you for sure. What I don't want any longer is some amazing 80 or 85-year-old grandma sitting in Florida or here in California or wherever alone. And she's got her Bible, and she's got the Lord, and she's got the Hagmann and Hagmann report. Reach out to us. We're ready, and we're here. We love you in the spirit of Christ, and so let's do this. Now, once we have a good number of participants on the Start Mail account, and again, that is hhconnections@startmail.com. Doug and Joe, once we have some rapport built, once we know some folks in different states, and we've had an opportunity to converse with them on the phone a little bit, get to know them, vet them in a, let's just say in a very casual manner, then what we can do is we can begin offering to bring these folks into a larger volunteer base, because hopefully the Lord will bless this, and we will have an enormous number of folks that want to get connected, that say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to experience something like the Whitestone Remnant Conference, even if I can't afford to get on a plane and fly, halfway across the country. And that being said, a quick note on Whitestone. I know that not everybody's of the gregarious nature or the type of person to pick up the phone and talk on the radio. But at Whitestone, folks, one of the coolest things about those few days in Bozeman, Montana, was I personally have never before in my life met so many people of all ages, all demographics, all different walks of life, almost every state, simply because we love the Lord, we're awake, and we listen to the Hagmann Hagmann report. And this is an opportunity to get that type of energy going 24/7, 365.
You know, John, it's an honor for us to be involved. I mean, for those who were at Whitestone, if you felt the Spirit moving amongst us, and we want to always capture that moment and continue that spirit, the spirit of inclusion. And this is what, God bless American Survival Wholesale, God bless John, God bless Jeannie at Honest to Goodness Toffee for their gift of time, because this is what they want to not just create but maintain. And again, I just want to reiterate this. This is not, but what this is not is a love connection, or it's not a suicide hotline. No, it's not that. We don't. Please don't call in and try to. If you're. We have to use this properly, I suppose. That's the key to success. So this has got to be used and treated properly for what it is. It's just a way to meet other people, like-minded. It's a way to interact with others. It's an opportunity. And as long as we deal with this properly, we don't have anything to worry about. But use your judgment all the time. But what John and Chance and Jane, what everyone's done here is really made it possible for you guys to connect with one another, interact, and that's what we were trying to do and we have done with our stickers and logos. Spread them all across the country. We don't charge for that. And there have been accounts of people meeting others and saying, "Hey, man, I listen to the show too." Tennessee, Colorado, California, Texas. 4 states right off the top of my head I can think of that happened. So this is yet another layer of trying to help others. And John, I got to tell you, man, you've done such a great job, and Chance and all you folks have done such a great job, man.
Well, we here's the thing, folks. It's we either hang together or we hang separately. And if I may, I just want to take one more quick moment to illustrate how powerful and how just what kind of loving fellowship this can be. I've been praying this through. I know that my team members have been as well. Talked with Jeannie and Chance within the last 24 hours or so, and they're really excited. And I just want to tell folks quickly, about a year ago, the way I met Chance, now I knew who he was because we knew who one another were through the show, through the Hagmann and Hagmann report, but we had no idea how close we lived to one another. And it wasn't until Chance reached out on air to me, and he said he had to go on air and say to the whole everybody, "John from Pasadena, if you're still listening, contact me at AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com." And folks, within a couple of days, we were sitting in front of a Starbucks together. We sat there for like 5 or 6 hours, told each other our life stories, and now we're like best friends. And that happened simply because Chance, he took a chance, if you'll pardon the expression. He got on air, and he threw it out there, 100%. Hey, if you're still listening, because there was no other way for him to contact me, really. And so that's what we're trying to do, is bridge that notion. I mean, I hear from people on this show like Lars. I know he's here in Southern California somewhere. Man, I would love to have some one-on-one chat time with Maria Canise. And so many others. I know when meeting Kyle and Katy back in Bozeman, Montana, amazing couple. I mean, these people are all over the place. And we want to operate, Doug and Joe, in the spirit and sort of as a volunteer central hub, if you will, to start drawing this family around the, quote, Hagmann kitchen table, unquote, the Lord willing. That's the plan. And if I may, I'll give out the address one more time.
Sure.
Cool. It's HH Connections, and that Connections is plural. HH Connections at startmail.com. And Doug and Joe, I really hope the next time we chat that I'll have some awesome stories to tell you guys about all the cool people that are checking in, and then you guys will be blessed to know who's listening.
well, John, for two things, folks. Number one, at HagmannandHagmann.com, at our website, if you go to HagmannandHagmann.com, you don't have to remember HH Connections at StartMail. It's under Friday on the Hagmann Hagmann Report, right under the topic, it says New Initiative, HH Connections at StartMail.com. Okay, so it's there under Friday's episode there. You'll see it. So all you do. Now, John, when someone sends an email, okay, obviously that you copy that, put it into an email client, whatever client you're using, AOL, Yahoo, whatever. Okay. What should people write in their email? How do you start off? I mean, hey, I'm Doug Hagmann. I live at I live in Pittsburgh, or I live in Philadelphia, or wherever. And what should they say?
That's a good question. Well, I would say, based on the folks I met in Bozeman, they're going to say pretty much whatever the Lord leads them to.
That's true.
But in all seriousness, I would say that reach out to us. I mean, look. One of the cool things about your show, Doug and Joe, is that we're all just regular people. We're all the Lord's servants. We're all His children. We're all fallen, and what we're really trying to do is scramble back to our Father. Right? That's what we're doing. And we need to help one another to do that. We need to encourage one another. We need to form fellowship. And I've been using this term a little bit lately, but this program has really gone from a sort of cutting edge precipice of the news, alternative news format. It's really become almost like an e-church, And that being said, I mean, folks can send us a one-sentence email saying, my name is Joe, and here's my phone number. I live in Pittsburgh, or they can write an email. They can write a 10-page email about what the Spirit is telling them and what scriptures they're reading, or maybe they just finished Paul McGuire's book or Greg Jackson's book or Rebecca Roth's book, for that matter, which I can't wait to read, by the way. So just reach out to us. And what excites me, and I think Chance and Jeannie would prefer this as well, if you folks are comfortable with it, just drop us a contact number so that we can, because really one-on-one is in conversation, but we're more than happy to initiate email friendships as well. It's just that sometimes, as I'm sure you and Joe know, Doug, answering emails can become really arduous and it can become really time-consuming. It's much easier for us to get to know our fellow Hagmann family members just by chatting with them.
Sure. Yes. John, it's a marvelous idea. It really is. And folks, all of us are really kind of going out on a limb here, but this is what we need to do. We need to really have a central point of contacts. And when you think about it, if we really believe in what we're saying as to how this everything is going to plan out, boy, we're going to need that support, aren't we, John?
Well, we are. And, Doug, I just thought of two things quickly while you were making that point. One of them is pretty basic, and the other one is just a quick piece of a vision I had about a year ago. The first thing I want to say is, as many of you folks may know, I do participate on the program from time to time. Anything discussed with our team members is considered confidential unless otherwise noted. So don't ever feel like you're going to send us an email or you're going to speak to us about something on your heart, something troubling you, and then you're going to hear your story the following evening. That would never happen. We would never do that. So I wanted to make that clear, just kind of put it out there bluntly.
Yep.
And the other thing I wanted to say quickly is, last year around this time, I got really sick for a while, and I was laying in bed listening to John Price on True News. And I had a vision. It wasn't very long, but the vision was powerful. And what it was there was a darkened hillside, a bald hillside, like a Southern California hillside. And there were tens of thousands of people populating this hillside, and it was a tempestuous, dark, like a little past twilight, big black clouds in the sky, and it was ominous. And a loud voice proclaimed that we would all bow, that it was time to bow. And I was so scared in the vision, and I was clasping hands with people on either side, and some of us were crying, and we were pretty much all shaking. But we stood firm, man. We were holding hands, we were together, and we stood firm, and we did not bow. And I remember I looked across this hillside, Doug and Joe, and there were other small groups that were clasping hands, and they were shaking. They refused to bow. And I'm going to make that my final comment for tonight. Sorry.
Amen, John.
No, that's all right, buddy. You know, it's emotional times. It's an emotional. It really. If you're paying attention with your spirit, I mean, if you're in tune spiritually, it's hard not to be emotional. And I think that. Wow. Yeah. Well, John, I'm thank you so much for explaining this. And ladies and gentlemen, if you tuned in late, John from Pasadena explaining our new initiative, and really not ours. I don't want to. The credit, none of the credit goes to me and Joe. None of this. It's John and Chance and American Survival Wholesale, Honest to Goodness Toffee, John from Pasadena, volunteering their time through the Start Mail, hhconnections at startmail.com to hook people up in terms of like-minded people. The vetting process is pretty solid. The people behind this, obviously American Survival Wholesale, Honest to Goodness Toffee, John from Pasadena, the people behind this are known to us. We've met them face-to-face. We've shared broken bread together, and we know who they are. So we do endorse this, and we just say, look, it's if you wish, there's no charge, and it's just up to you. You know, I mean, reach out. Sometimes we have to take chances, and I don't really consider this a chance. It's an opportunity. So, John, I really appreciate it, buddy.
Oh man,
Go ahead.
It's my pleasure. And just as a final, just kind of a final departure here. You know, folks, what it really boils down to is just we don't want anyone out there feeling alone. That is not Christ's instructions to us. He tells us to encourage one another. He tells us to love one another. He tells us to love one another even if we're having a hard time liking one another. And so what we want to do is simply get to know you. You know, sometimes it might be kind of hard to say to yourself, you know what, it doesn't sound the coolest thing to say, but maybe I am one of these lonely listeners out there. Well, who cares about that? Just reach out to us and let's become buddies. You know, that's really what it comes down to.
There you go.
All right, guys. Well,
all
thank you so much for putting your trust in us, and we love you, man.
Well, the feeling is mutual, buddy, and it's we will have on our website a special area, and in fact, I'll even draft something up to explain what you said tonight, just so in writing, so people know what the kind of the ins and outs. John, pretty much what you sent me refined a little bit for the website.
Cool.
You know, that way people can, if they're listening to this and only caught part of it or wondering what the heck are they doing, at least they'll have something to refer to.
All right. Well, listen, folks, God bless each and every one of you. Be strong in the spirit and know that we're taking a step here, and let's just get connected up. And I mean, we are the body. We are the body. So reach out. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Blessings, gentlemen. Have a great rest of the show.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Folks, that was John from Pasadena explaining the initiative that really is was birthed from American Survival Wholesale, Honest to Goodness Toffee, John from Pasadena, wanting to do something more than just talk. And you know, isn't that something? You listen to various radio programs, and and it frustrates us, folks. We are so frustrated because we get a lot of email and a lot of mail, and we do read every email. We read every card, every letter, every piece of paper. We try to respond to as many as we can. Sometimes not in a timely fashion, but But with this help, with this assistance, or with this initiative, maybe maybe we can change the world. And frankly, we might fall flat on our faces, but we do so with an honest and open heart and with the best of intent. Otherwise, it's we've got to start somewhere. So, anyway, moving along here, I want to address an email I got. This kind of dovetails with what John was talking about a little bit, to a slight extent, I suppose. I'm going to read you the email. I'll just say this is from Frank F. Got it today, and he shared some thoughts, and I got to thinking about this as I was doing some other things after reading it, and I thought, I want to address this. And here's what Frank had sent us. He said, it seems the collapse, meaning the economic collapse and the societal collapse, it seems that it's been put off again until 2017. First there was 2013. Oh my, things are going to fall apart and go crazy. 2014, 2015, 2016. He writes, I understand that there are so many variables that influence these events, but it seems we go through a roller coaster ride every so often. I take it to the Lord and say, Lord, there are so many watchmen on the wall. Can you eliminate some of them or separate the wheat from the weeds? It seems people that you have interviewed, meaning us, on our show, that were in some agreement have now gone their separate ways. I can't be the only person that sees this. Well, Frank, you're not. I, like so many others, depend and make plans and needs. Let me see here. This is kind of a fractured sentence, but I, like so many others, depend and make the plans and needs, present and future, based on the expertise, knowledge of a guest, with the ultimate power relying on the Lord. Let's see here. I'm not going to read that. Let's see here. Basically, we attempt to maintain a balanced approach. That's what we do here. We try to do that without emotion, drama, and that kind of stuff. And he writes, I'm tired of all the drama. And I can assure you I'm not alone. Friends of mine, like myself, are tired of the roller coaster ride and the hype and the drama. I'd like you to address this. They say a tree is known by its fruit, and I feel led not to listen to some of your guests, unless they are on your show, where you will get to the facts and the meat of the issue and cut through the BS. Now, wow. You might think, okay, that's, what, it doesn't matter. I don't know what you might think. Well, here's what I want to address very quickly before we get into the entire program here, or the rest of the program. Joe and I it seems like we fell into this position, this radio program, this ministry, and I really hesitate to use the word ministry, but I guess at some point it is, on some levels. We attempt to bring forth the people that we know and we trust, and we attempt to provide all sides of, or as many credible sides of the situation. We know spiritually, deep down, if you're breathing, I'm sure you know in your heart and in your spirit that we are in a really bad place, whether you're in the United States or you're listening to this in Canada, wherever you might be. You can see the world kind of spiraling out of control. That's a fact. The world is spiraling out of control. Look at the power that was upset, or the balance of power that has been changed and through Arab Spring, and look at what's going on here to the United States. Compare it to where we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. No drama necessary, no additional drama necessary. And by the way, I'm one that I really detest drama queens, drama kings. I just don't like that whole delivery. I just don't like it. Just each and every listener out there, if you're listening to this program, I know that you've got the sense, you've got the power, you've got the intellectual ability, capacity to really hear information and process it. You don't need somebody yelling or somebody stomping up and down, and you don't need some freakish sideshow. That's not why you tune in. We struggle with this every day. I was talking to Steve Quayle. 2 things he said. Well, 3 things, actually. And this is before this email came in. He said, number 1, it's interesting because God makes, and you've heard him say this, God makes better friends for us than we can for ourselves. But he made an addition to that. God will also remove those from our circle of friends based on the fruit or based on, in other words, he'll take away those people who are perhaps not genuine or perhaps a little bit, have a little bit too much license with the truth. Now, if you think about that, all I can say with that, in a general sense, and I'm not talking about anyone in particular, I'm not, but we strive to bring you we will bring you guests that we know, who we know. No one's going to be anonymous to us. Don't like that one bit. If you're anonymous to us, you're not getting on the air. You can be a caller, but not a guest. We don't need that. We don't need it. And those people who insist on anonymity, in my view, you got a problem. Because if you don't have the cojones to go out there or to tell me or to tell Joe or to tell us who you are, well, you got a problem. The other thing, too, is if you tell us your name is Joe Smith, and your name happens to be Donald Hanson, you even have a bigger problem. And that's coming directly from me. Because you violated our trust. And you ought not to do that. But that was one point. The other point was, Steve and I were talking, he said, and he was sick of this. He says, man, I can't date Set. People who date Set, tell me in one instance they've been correct. And I think that the confusion, and I think everyone has this level of confusion. You see everything popping like you're in a war. You're in combat, man. Bombs are going on, metaphorically speaking. Bombs going on, off around you. Hey, you're working your butt off. You're working 2 jobs or 1 job that's 20 hours long, or you're a waitress carrying trays, dead but tired, disillusioned, looking for somebody, anybody to tell you the truth. You're not getting it on the mainstream media. No one's telling the truth. And then you got people with agendas out there. And we get accused of this a lot. And I say this only to just to kind of lay the groundwork here. There are so many people that are very educated and have great intellects and a lot of information. They write books. I mean, think of Paul McGuire, for example. Love him like a brother. Yeah, he writes books. He wrote Prophecy of the Future of America. He's a great guy. He's just a fantastic man. Mm-hmm. Just because somebody writes a book and says, "Hey, I wrote a book, it's available for sale." Just because that, do not think that we're hawking books or he's hawking books. In fact, he's been more generous with books than anyone I've ever known.
I talked with him about this yesterday, and I told him, I said, it's great to see that there are so many people out there who write books to fill deadlines and write books to as a source of revenue, which is fine. But with Greg, he writes books on what the Lord wants.
You're talking about Paul.
Oh, Paul McGuire.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Greg, too. I was talking with Greg about this. Paul, too, is the same way. They don't write books to write books. When the Lord calls them to research something and get it out there, then they write the books.
And you know how I look at books, like from Paul McGuire and Greg Jackson and others? They're like textbooks to me. We're in school.
No, that's an insult to Paul and Greg, because textbooks are just mindless propaganda.
By definition, I suppose. Okay.
I understand that in theory they are what you're talking about.
Right. You read to learn. You don't read for entertainment. You read to learn. And
that information is accurate and true and beneficial, not stuff you don't use for the rest of your life.
And so, but what Frank was saying here in his email about the roller coaster ride of drama, emotions, I think that when we get into the facts and then we deliver the facts, we can do so in a very straightforward manner without the drama, without the saying, the things are going to happen in 2017. Now, Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle, they firmly believe, based on a lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, Pastor Langford fasting for the entire month of January. And folks, both Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle will be on tomorrow night on a special show. It's a very special spiritual show tomorrow night, culminating the 31 days of the month of fasting. And of course, if you're not familiar with that, it's on the right-hand column of our website. It's the I'm sorry, as I stammer and stutter here. It's May God Have Mercy on Us, January 31st, 2015. Click here to learn what we need to do. It explains it all. You can click on that, and it explains what the past month has been. If you have not seen it, or if you've not engaged in the repentance, prayer, and fasting. But for example, we can say, and this is okay to say, I believe, that 2015 is going to be a year of change, and I believe that to be true. Can I identify exactly what? No. Do I think that the sky is going to fall? No. Could it? Sure. But and people often say, well, boy, it's frightening to hear the information that you have. Well, yeah, you know what? I get scared too. And when I say afraid, I'm talking about my physical,
Yeah, and that's a human reaction.
Yeah.
It's also an emotion which can be worked on. It can be fixed. You don't have to be afraid, and we're told not to fear. This world.
That's a human emotion.
Exactly. But we're human. We make mistakes. Yeah, of course we get scared or get fearful here and there, even though knowing we're not supposed to. But at the same time, we have to learn how to not hide our emotions, but manage our emotions, to recognize our emotions so we can identify the... One thing I learned, that when somebody's angry, anger usually is not the emotion that started this. They were hurt, they were confused. That leads to anger. Anger is a secondary emotion or reaction to a different emotion.
Exactly. Yeah, very well said.
We have to understand ourselves, I guess, would be a good way to say it.
No, I think that's a very important statement to make, and I think you said that very well. But there's a difference. Well, I think that outside of this email, which I thought was an extremely good email and a very pertinent one for today, the world. We know the world is not going to end. Well, I shouldn't say we know. Based on biblical accounts, the prophecies and such, I would place I don't believe the world's going to end tomorrow or anytime soon. I don't believe the world's going to end. But that doesn't mean the world and life as we know it is not going to change and change for the worse. The world's still going to be here, and God willing, we're still going to be here. But we're not going to. I don't believe the world's going to end, and I think to approach what we're seeing take place in a very logical, drama-free, and stable manner. Look at things in a very, just look at things. Be very logical about it. Take the emotion away from it. Stop the roller coaster ride. That doesn't mean stop the message. That doesn't mean that we're not in a world of hurt right now. We are. Now, unless you are a mindless, mind-numb drone that is so far left politically, socially, morally, and economically that you don't see what's happening, I think everyone can agree that, things are not good. So, but can we say with any degree of certainty that there's going to be a bioterror attack, or there's going to be a nuclear attack, or there's going to be, insert crisis here? No. And I'll tell you something else. If someone comes on our show and says, you know what, on January or February 20th, 2015, there's going to be a terrorist attack in New York City, and it does happen, that's got my attention. Not for the reasons, however, you might think. It's got my attention because I would strongly urge an investigation of that individual and his foreknowledge of that attack. You see where I'm going with this? Because, look, I've been an investigator for 30 years, Joe for 10, roughly. And I think we've seen a lot. And we've dealt with people who have less than honorable intentions, and every second word out of their mouth is a lie, or builds to a lie, or who really push the drama aspect in their lives. So we understand this, and we are tired of the roller coaster. We are tired of everything's gonna fall apart. Well, you know what? The economy might crash. I do believe the economy will crash. In other words, the dollar will be taken down. But does that end the world? No. It changes things, not for the better. It changes things. We just have to work through it, power through it, and most importantly, sit down, listen, and understand how it will affect you, your walk, your personal, how is it going to affect you? And even more importantly than that, what can you do to take the steps to be prepared and to protect yourself and your family? That's what I believe. I don't know how else to say it. And look, we're just a couple. We're a father and son. I'm just a guy with basically no business being in radio. None. I'm not even sure how in the world we got here. But tasked with the job as watchmen, plural. Apparently, we were led to this. Not apparently, we were. Accepting that position, we give you our word. We are going to damn well work that position, play that position, give respect to that position with all of our heart. In other words, we are not going to, we're just going to be real people, talking about real issues, doing our best to help others, and help you help yourselves. And that's the most we can do.
Yeah.
And that's what we offer. And look, I walk behind my dog with a plastic bag and pick up her poop just like everyone else. And, You know what I mean? It when you start thinking about that. Of course, I think Obama, does he have a dog? Yeah, I think. I mean, of course, with rich people and the 1% or whatever, the elite, I guess they have underlings that do that, but it's so. I guess what I'm saying is we're nothing special. In fact, the way we look at ourselves as watchmen is, man, we better do a good job, because we're going to be facing the wrath of God if we don't. And that's one thing. That's one. When you're a small child, and you know that your dad was going to come home and punish you for something you had done or not done. You dreaded that moment. Well, multiply that by about 1,000 times or 10,000 times. I certainly don't want to find myself having to answer for doing something or not doing something before God Almighty. No way. Frank, I hope that answers your question. And for those people who have thought that, wondered about that, listened, and said, man, they're all over the map. We are. We're all over the map for cause, because there are different things, different angles, trying to put pieces of the puzzle together. Some puzzle pieces, we've got to take off the table because they don't belong to this puzzle. And sometimes we don't find out about that until, 2, 3, 4 days, a week, a month, 6 months later. We're learning as you're learning, and we're guiding as to the best of our ability. So, I think that needed to be said. I really do. I think Frank, thank you so much for sending that email, and I do hope that each and every listener took what we said just tonight in the spirit in which we meant it, and that's just purely with an open heart, a bare soul, and just wanting to do the right thing. We don't have all the answers. We're learning just like you, and we're going to learn together. And you know what? We're going to protect you as best we can, because we know you tune into the show for a reason. There are so many shows out there you can listen to. Man, a lot of them. Some really great ones, better than ours, I got to tell you. But you're here, and we thank you.
Absolutely.
And we
couldn't
care
do it
deeply.
without you. Wouldn't
right.
do it without you. Can't do it without you.
There'd be no reason to do it without you.
No, not unless we might as well just sit in the van, go back to PI work, and tape record it.
Absolutely. And the only other thing, and then Joey, you can take it because I know we're up against the break, but if there is an event or something that we feel led to tell you that there's something really bad in the offing, or that we've got a very good handle on, we'll let you know. We'll tell you right out. Look, here's what we found, and we don't know, or we think we know, but in all cases, you've got to take it intellectually and spiritually. Please.
Yeah.
All right. Back, ladies and gentlemen, to a Friday edition, Friday the 30th day of January 2015, last Friday of the month, Friday edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. I wonder how many of you have more month than money left. That's a problem when people have more month left over than money, and it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse with the economic news and such. It's interesting how we are being slaves, or we are slaves being subjugated to a system that we really cannot win, although we must continue. I mean, we have to press forward and do what we can. But anyway, just thought of that as sitting down earlier and writing some checks, and at the end of the month, you got to pay the bills. So we understand. We don't have the Rush Limbaugh Learjet or the Glenn Beck bus. I don't know. Maybe he does, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
That $400 million thing he signed, contract he signed not too long ago, the last one. I remember that. That was a lot of money.
How much?
400 million.
400 million. Yeah, that's about.
I wouldn't even take that. What would you do with that responsibility?
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, look, he's given a gift, and it's how he uses that money, right?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'd be afraid. I'd have to have. I mean, it wouldn't just be my money. It would have to be our family's money, and we'd have to manage it in a way that is beneficial and goes to creating ways to help people that are not just a one-time thing, but creating systems of helping people helping people.
Exactly. And, how much can money buy? What can money buy?
The presidency.
Well, that's true. But certainly no one's ever, there are no hearses following, or no U-Hauls following hearses. So you're not going to take it with you. It's all material stuff. So anyway, just one thing real quick, and I'm going to turn it back over to you. This weekend, we're going to see the Super Bowl. Well, the Super Bowl is going to be aired. It's going to be one of the most watched events all across the world, and especially here in the United States, or all across North America. And we have talked with Nathan Leal, of course, and Paul McGuire, and others, and Steve Quayle, and many people who understand what's really taking place. And folks, I've gotten the emails, the snickers, the elbow jabs to others, and the finger pointing, saying, "Oh, he's one of those guys, one of the conspiracy kooks that think that everything's a conspiracy."
Well, it is. It's a conspiracy theory to deny facts in the furthering of the covering up or being ignorant of reality.
Right.
I mean, in a sense, regardless if 9/11 was an inside job or not, it still was a conspiracy. It means one or more people involved in planning and operating the crime and carrying out the crime.
It's funny you mentioned the phrase "inside job." I have trouble with that phrase because that connotates that brings forth like images of Bush sitting at his desk rubbing his hands together, and Cheney and Rumsfeld all together working together and saying, "Okay, this is what we're going to do."
Older Bush and Cheney, I can see. But then you have younger Bush, who seemed like he was a airhead and not smart enough, capable to even comprehend the depthness of the plans. But I'm not sure. But yeah.
Well, and I think we have to understand that conspiracies, like for example 9/11, you don't have to control everything. All you have to do is control certain elements, the choke points of information, and hence you've got the ability to control everything. And so it doesn't have to involve thousands of people because someone will say, "Oh, yeah." At any rate, to the Super Bowl. Now, last year, the Super Bowl 2013. Just think about this. Just
2014.
Coming up.
What was the last one? I know what you're saying. For the season of
we're going to go back to the 2013 Super Bowl. Go back to that.
Super Bowl happened in 2014, but it was 2013 season it was based on. So.
Well, I'm talking about the 2013 Super Bowl that featured the Sandy Hook Chorus, Jennifer Hudson, Alicia Keys, Beyonce, and all that. Okay, going back there. The reason I'm going back there at this moment is to just lay the foundation very briefly that there was a change that was made, and as we look at the Super Bowl this year. You're going to see things. Well, in the words of Katy Perry, what are her exact words here? I'm trying to pull it up. I had my notes. Katy Perry says faces will melt during the Super Bowl halftime show. Now, obviously, one would assume that is, or suspect that is just a phrase or a statement. I can't imagine. Necessarily people's faces melting off. Never heard that, except in cases that they might have been on fire. But okay, so that's what she said in an interview recently. Katy Perry, people's faces will melt, and of course at the end she said everyone's going to have a smile on their face, and she did say it's going to be spiritual. But let's go back to the 2013 Super Bowl quickly and briefly. We saw there the Sandy Hook Chorus, Jennifer Hudson, Alicia Keys, Beyonce. Is that how you pronounce that? and just a whole slew of these advertisements surrounded by a football game. More and more, and especially of late, the focus appears to be on the entertainment, the halftime show, than the actual game. But the game itself does hold some significance. And I think earlier this season, I think we did, or during the playoffs at some point before everything was known, I think both you and I in unison called the Seahawks and the Patriots to be in the Super Bowl. And we did that because obviously there's an agenda here, and this is all an illusion. Now, a thinking person, a rational person might say, "Well, wait a minute. Are you telling me that the entire NFL is rigged, or the football game it's rigged?" Well, I think to an extent it's controlled. Do I know how? I don't. But certainly, if it's not controlled, it's exploited. There's a big difference there, and I think we can all agree that at this point it's being exploited. The fact that you've got the Seahawks and the Patriots, there's a lot of symbolism there. So we don't even have to go to the control. We can just look at the exploitation. But going back to 2013, even the year before that, Madonna. I think that the Super Bowl halftime show with Madonna, that would have been the 2012 Super Bowl taking place in 2013. You had a Madonna celebration of the Grand Priestess of the music industry. She really came out, and of course you saw all sorts of Egyptian symbolism, Sumerian and Babylonian. She was dressed in a manner that resembled this ancient Sumerian Babylonian goddess. Well, Ishtar. Remember that, folks? Ishtar, of course, was a very powerful and assertive goddess whose areas of control and influence included war, love, sexuality, prosperity, fertility, prostitution, you name it. And Ishtar, of course, worked for the same existence as men, we are told, enjoying the glory of battle and seeking sexual experiences. Now, I don't want to go too far down this road. I just want to alert people to things to watch for based on historical past Super Bowls, entertainment shows, halftime shows. But Madonna's portrayal as Ishtar, I believe, was a turning point toward the overt. And if you look at this, the mythological aspects of the Super Bowl halftime shows, there's a theme developing now. We can see a continuing course of conduct here among the people who are doing these halftime shows that suggest a message to be conveyed. And we saw, of course, during the performance, now I'm talking about Madonna's performance, the covers of Vogue magazine were displayed. That's a publication that is really at the forefront of Illuminati symbolism in fashion. They've got symbolic picks of the month and so on. And Vogue ends with a symbol that's consistent with the Egyptian Babylonian theme of Madonna's performance, at any rate at that time. And a symbol that is of highest importance in the occult secret societies. And I'm talking about the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, and the Illuminati. And the Egyptian mystics used the winged sun for ritualistic magic and invocations, as Madonna did. And it's being used today by Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and other occult organizations. Now, to those of you who say, "Hey, my brother's a Freemason, they do good works," we're not talking, Joe and I are not talking about the people at that level. We're talking about the infrastructure of the Freemasonry at the top, and Tom Horn's, Steve Quayle, Tom Horn, Paul McGuire, Doc Marquis, many experts on this topic. So, she performed "Give Me All Your Lovin'" with connected. I won't get into that, but the what I recall from this and from my notes, there were two female rappers, Nicki Minaj and NMIA, I think.
Nicki Minaj, yeah.
Is that how you pronounce that name?
Yep.
Okay, I wrote it down, but I certainly. All right. Well, they contributed to the song, and they acted as her minions or slaves, if you will, and they were cheering for Madonna as a high priestess. There was a very overt, open relationship where Madonna held the power, was the handler, and the whole performance was really soaked in mind control symbolism. And this is this is important to note here: beta programming. And if you're not familiar with beta programming, BETA, like the old beta tapes, that's also known as sex kitten programming. And you can do your own research on that. It involves this feline prints, clothing, textiles, and the entire halftime show was really an animal print extravaganza, and being positioned at that halftime show was her song "Like a Prayer," which really served as a spiritual sermon, if you will. And folks, getting into the depths of that song, the video version of that song, it's always been very, very controversial because of its melding, combining the religious or spiritual themes with sexuality. A lot of this is about sex. And I'm not talking about marital sex, but sex in a very occult manner. And this is what we saw during the Madonna Super Bowl. And people will watch that, see the signs, see the symbols. And it's interesting because for Madonna, her performance lasted exactly 13 minutes. You can say, "Oh, this is just random. This is just, You can find images in tea leaves, but the combination, the totality of evidence, of signs, of symbols, they create and define an underlying philosophy, an underlying belief system that is antithetical to our God, the real God. And I think that if you look at the Super Bowl performances, perhaps the Madonna performance, maybe that was the beginning of really the overt nature of all of the future performances. In other words, she came out and performed this Illuminati ritual, this satanic worship ritual. How many people watched it? Millions, billions, I don't know. Well, she, acting as the high priestess of the Illuminati industry, 13-minute sermon, 13-minute in this magic spell. They're performing magic right before our very eyes, and not only that, they are this magic spell that Madonna and others who are performing are using all of us. They're engaging all of us. We're not just passive observers. We're really not. The energy, we provide the energy. We provide the extra punch. And I mentioned the 2013 Super Bowl, then with the Sandy Hook chorus and Jennifer Hudson, Alicia Keys, and Beyonce, and the ads too. The symbolism contained. It seemed as if it went 1 or 2 levels higher than Madonna. And folks, you don't have to take Joe and I, our assessment of this at all. You can dismiss it out of hand. You could say, you guys are crazy. And if you do, that's fine. I can't spend the time convincing you otherwise, nor do I really want to, if that is your position. Move along. Hopefully, at some point, someone else will wake you up. But the Illuminati agenda is now becoming so in your face. With the Sandy Hook chorus in 2013, they sung "Over the Rainbow" to commemorate the shooting. Children that survived the shooting, they're used as Illuminati pawns. "Over the Rainbow" happens to be an MK Ultra trigger song. Now, if you don't know what an MK Ultra is, please do your own, do the research. Speaking with Russ Dizdar here this week, Russ is on the front lines of some very, very heavy things. This stuff is real. We've seen it, not to the extent, not anywhere near the extent Russ has seen it, but we've seen it in the form of crime scenes where, yes, there are ritualistic satanic sacrifices. These groups exist. So if they exist in the bushes or in the fields of Illinois or Indiana or in the brush of Nevada, what makes you think that they don't exist right in front of our faces? If you believe in the twisted, convoluted, satanic nature of the Skull and Bones and the Bohemian Grove, what makes you think that they can't take what's overt, what's hidden, and bring it forth, veil it thinly, and present it to the public? And not only that, laugh at you, laugh at me, laugh at those who don't understand what they're doing, and as they clap along and say, this is, boy, what a great entertainer, what a great performance. You can bet, folks, MK Ultra will be extremely active. Now, if you look, I'm just going to sidetrack here. Again, I'm closing this out, but if I can just go a different route, the Olympic ceremony 2012 in the UK, the Illuminati did communicate through overt satanic rituals and symbols an occult message to a global audience, much like you will see this Sunday. If you look at the Nielsen ratings, 4.7 billion people watched those ceremonies in Great Britain. 4.7 billion. How can you get an audience like that? I mean, if you were pushing forth an agenda, wouldn't you want 4.7 billion to watch or to take part in this? Or if you knew 4.7 billion people were going to be watching it, certainly if you had something to, a spell to cast, magic to perform, a ritual to perform, that would be the place to do it. But most of the people obviously did not consciously comprehend the symbology, the ritual, although many walked away from the Olympic ceremonies sensing that something was very disturbing about it, very ominous, very dark. Once everybody is informed as to what the symbolism, what the rituals are all about, then they become frightened and horrified that these powerful and elite groups do actually exist, and the dark plans they have for mankind are actually in progress. Now, despite the fact that more people are being awakened, the majority of Americans are in this mass hypnotic state. Are we not? Aren't many? Aren't your neighbors?
Absolutely.
People have been brainwashed, and they live in a level of unconsciousness, completely unaware of what's going on. And one of the primary pieces of evidence that an individual is brainwashed is that no matter how logical an argument is and how many facts you can bring up, they completely reject it. And often they react with anger and attack you as we said earlier, a conspiracy theorist, which is what they've been programmed to do. This is what it's all about. If you go back into the late 1800s, the Illuminati developed this very sophisticated, highly sophisticated brainwashing and occult-based mind control science. It was a science. It enabled them to control the thinking of the majority of the population, even entire nations. Now, you've heard Glenn Beck, for example, and others bring up Fabian socialists. Look, the Fabian socialists and agents of British intelligence, like Paul McGuire talks about Aldous Huxley, H.G. Wells, George Orwell, they all wrote science fiction novels that do talk. They speak to a future where the entire population, all citizens, are controlled by brainwashing. This is not us talking. This is Huxley and Wells and Orwell. Factor in the Tavistock Institute in Great Britain. They developed the science of mind control with the help of Sigmund Freud and other scientists. And after the show last night or the night before, Joe and I were talking about Freud. Now, these methodologies of mind control is spread to the most elite universities, Harvard, Yale, Oxford, to various think tanks, to be used in the, ultimately later as things progress, to be used in the U.S., Hitler, the Third Reich, which was heavily involved in Satanism. I think you've heard, was it Russ Dizdar that went to Germany, the Bavarian castle, and stood there, and yeah, I mean, folks, this is what we're seeing play out here, and I hope everyone understands this, and this is perhaps the crux of what I would like to get across. Not only are we dealing in Satanism and the occult, but we're looking at a form of trauma-based mind control. Now, the Tavistock Institute, the Hitler and the Third Reich, and the people heavily involved at the top of this mind control via the Tavistock Institute, they combined such things as very powerful psychotropic drugs. We see that as an aside. We see that here among the population who are taking medication after medication after medication for personality disorders, ADHD, ADD, MIA, WTF, I don't know, man. But, sorry. Combine those drugs and torture and sexual abuse and satanic rituals to program people. And after the Second World War, the United States brought in 9,000 Nazi scientists under Operation Paperclip. And we often hear Operation Paperclip. And have you sat down, folks, and really looked at Operation Paperclip, what that was all about? 9,000 Nazi scientists who specialized in rocket science and, yes, mind control science. Today, the average person has got no clue, none, how advanced the science of mind control is, how far down that road is. Really, the great secret is that the Nazi scientists brought with them their occult and satanic beliefs, and that the science of mind control and satanic rituals, well, they often go hand in hand. Now, Paul McGuire talks and writes extensively about this. Among the sources, A Prophecy of the Future of America. He's one of the foremost experts on this. This mind control has been used to really break down the family unit, to promote sexual immorality, to destroy the Christian system of belief and patriotism, or at least the association with one's country, establish a new occult and a Luciferian religious system. This is exactly what we will bear witness to, or what the world will bear witness to, this Super Bowl halftime. And you might think, oh, and come on, get real. I mean, I could just imagine sitting at the table with my relative and explaining this, and the eye roll and the laughs and the chuckles. Come on, are you serious? But people don't understand the counterculture of really. People don't really understand. Rather than get into that, people don't understand the backdrop to this, and it's. You can go back to the counterculture, and I'm not going to go through this other than to say, if you go back into the 1960s, the sexual revolution, the feminist movement, the introduction of drugs, the mass acceptance of this New Age movement, even yoga, the popularity that how popular that became, and even is today. This just didn't happen spontaneously. The British music invasion we saw back in the 60s, if you're old enough to remember that, with the Beatles in the 70s and their records, their promotion, glamorization of drugs, the free sex, Woodstock, the occult and Eastern mystic religions that we saw. This was all a planned psychological warfare operation. Please understand that. We're at war here. And lastly, when you go back to the 60s and you really study history and you study the social aspect of that time period, those people who remember the Beatles, how they evolved, remember seeing them on television, if you're old enough, the clean-cut look, Isn't it interesting how they evolved into this vehicle that promoted drugs, that promoted this sex and anarchy and the occult? Yes, they did. It was no accident that there were and are numerous occult messages in their songs and albums, or that the picture, for example, of Aleister Crowley, the Satanist, who called himself the Beast, 666. No accident that he's pictured on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album, and because Satanism and the occult are all over the albums and the rock groups, and that brings us to today. And we've talked before about the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin and Crowley, Aleister Crowley, the Satanist. And Paul McGuire talks about Timothy Leary, who promoted LSD, and how all of this kind of intertwined, and the blatant occult symbols used in the Olympics now in Great Britain sent out the message that the elite, and we're talking about the financial elite, and not just the elite, but we're talking about the financial elite inside the city of London, like the Vatican City in Rome. They're tightening the noose on the West, and especially Americans, by deliberately destroying our way of life. And they're doing it through the destruction of the dollar. They're hitting the net worth of all of us. They're destroying the middle class. Look at what's going on in Europe, purposely, to bring forth a one-world economic system, a one-world government, and a one-world religion. They've been planning for centuries. You see, Go back, and if you don't believe me, this is all prophesied by Daniel in the book of Daniel, the Apostle Paul, Apostle John in the book of Revelation, Jesus Christ, of course. And a lot of people are going to say, you're just, they're going to dismiss these occult rituals as meaningless or ignorant or merely superstitious at best. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you that's a very dangerous misconception. Because true satanic, true occult rituals, they go back, they predate the flood. They're heavily practiced in Canaan and Babylon, and they do open portals into other dimensions that allow access of the world leaders, for example, the world rulers who existed before the flood and Noah. You've got to open your mind to this and think about the Tower of Babel and the powerful influences the leaders of that time, Nimrod, had over world events. So when we look at if you do watch the Super Bowl, or even if you don't, but just know it exists, Katy Perry is going to be performing. The symbolism here, and I would urge everyone just not to involve themselves, not to participate in this, because she's going to be performing ritual magic. She's going to involve not just the people in the stands, but everyone watching. And lastly, it's interesting because Katy Perry, her father, Keith Hudson, he's a minister. This is part of the conditioning process. Keith Hudson, he's going to be in the stands with his wife, Mary. Of course, he came out in Charisma News and said, I don't like what she's doing. In fact, I'll quote this. I was at a concert of Katy's where there were 20,000 people. I'm watching this generation, and they were dancing and jumping around. It was almost like church. This is Katy Perry's father talking now. I stood there and watched how much they were admiring Katy. I thought, hey, they're loving and worshiping the wrong thing. I couldn't help but weep and weep and weep. Well, Hudson and his wife, Mary, they became pastors in the 80s and traveling evangelists in the 90s. And Keith, interestingly enough, labels himself as an end times messenger, while Mary is an author and prophet, according to their website. So, Joe, what do you think of this? You've got an end times evangelist, traveling evangelist, daddy to Katy Perry, saying, man, don't like it. And I weep and weep and weep because they're worshiping the wrong thing. But yet, they're in the crowd. They're in support of this woman. They're in support of their daughter. There isn't any judgment. So what do you make of that? Isn't this kind of a microcosm, or at least an illustration of what we see today, where you've got certain preachers, certain pastors and ministers, and you've got other people watching, sitting back and saying, I don't agree with it, but, she's my daughter. Or
He did say she was possessed, that she gave herself over to the devil.
Well, who in their right mind then? As a father, Joe, who in their right mind? Do you think for 1 minute that if you were engaged in satanic worship and do you think that I'd be sitting in the stands or in the front row seat at the Super Bowl watching you do that?
I know you wouldn't.
Not only wouldn't I'd be chasing after you with it wouldn't be a Nerf bat.
No. and we've kind of went through that before in the past. I hear a lot of fathers say, "Oh, I'd never turn my sons into the police." You have before. I deserved it. Not only did I deserve it, I needed it.
See, it's not done out of hate or
right.
It's done out of love, because you see a loved one going down a particular path. You better doggone well step in, because if you sit back and say, well, indifference. If you're indifferent to it, well, that's really the polar opposite in my view of love. If you're indifferent, you can hate it. I don't like it. Well, that's what Keith Hudson says. But see, it's not right. So you better step in, and this is where we're at today. You've got a lot of people embracing the religion, I believe, of tolerance. You're going to tolerate this? We tolerate the lesser of two evils. Sorry, but the lesser of two evils is still evil. Well, what are we going to do about it? Anything you can. Pray. Make a plan, whatever you need to do, but don't tolerate it. And don't when people say, well, I think what a kook show. What a kook idea. They're a bunch of conspiracy nuts. They're kooks. I've read the emails. I've read them all. Or at least as many as I could stomach. Well, you know what? You better have thick skin. You better man up. You better not get twisted and bent out of shape by somebody calling you an idiot or a moron, or somebody who's engaged in conspiracy theory. And you know what? If you've got and this is what I believe, if you've got a platform, if you are somebody that has a much bigger, broader reach than us, then I don't understand why you're not talking about this. I don't understand why you're not talking about the destruction of our country, the destruction of our morality, the destruction of our religion. Because you know what? The very people who have the microphone and who are saying, well, we ought not to go there, or I really don't want to go there because, it might affect the numbers, the listeners. Well, you know what? We keep going down this path. That's going to be the least of your problems. You won't have listeners, because there are things taking place right now to quell any type of speech that would involve attacking one's religion and Satanism, or that's a religion. That'll be a protected religion. We're seeing it now in Oklahoma. That's a protected form of speech, right? You can't attack that.
It's coming to the. We see not that obviously the religion. All Muslims are not part of the problem, but with Christianity and on TV, they're moving away from Islamic extremists, even though that is a proper terminology to use to. I don't know what else, a better way to describe it. If a Christian, we see it all the time where these shootings happen and incidents happen and initial reports come out, oh, it's a vet, oh, it's a Christian. Somebody has a Facebook page and they like the Bible. The news media, the person on Facebook said they like the Bible and they're Christian, so, they're Christian terrorists. They use whatever indicators they can, but their page could also be filled with, likes of books from genocidal leaders to socialist policymakers, which will be overlooked. They'll use every and any connection to demonize and rid this country and world of Christianity, both the people who believe in it and the books that teach it, but they bend over backwards not to offend everybody and anybody else. There's no accident or coincidences about this. No,
and you've done a great job in providing a lot of background data research. It's coming to the point now where I'll just use this as an example. The news headlines, Disney Disneyland. Is that Disneyland in California? The measles outbreak there. Watch that carefully, please. Not necessarily the measles outbreak itself. Watch the demonization that is taking place. And this is the story behind this story. It's not about the 100 cases of measles. That's just the excuse for the story. That's not to undermine, or it's not to minimize the serious nature of measles. However, what is taking place is they're taking this event and they are demonizing the parents of children who the parents who didn't vaccinate their children against measles. Don't forget, measles essentially was eradicated from the United States. But when did that change? That changed with the open border policy. Bring them in from the filth of the third world without any inspection, without anything, any type of regard for the citizens of this country. That whole process is seditious and treasonous, and people should be hung from the people behind that agenda should be hung from the lampposts for sedition and treason. Because you see, they're putting us at risk.
They should be held in a courtroom, and all the evidence presented to a jury who passes a standard test of cognition, knowing that they can understand and discern evidence and know what fact versus fiction versus opinion are, and people without any preconceived ideas or hates or likes or dislikes against the people, and they need to present the evidence to those their jurors, and the jury needs to reach a verdict, and we should go by that.
Amen.
Giving them more of legal rights and more respect than they gave the people who were in the towers, or all the civilians that they've murdered in the Middle East, or endless amounts from back to the Holocaust till now. Their decisions, they act like they make it. How could you sit there deciding, should we blow up the whole village or just go try to seek out the terrorists? Let's blow up the whole village. Well, what about collateral damage? Well, that's just all it is, collateral damage. Who can look at people like that? They make these decisions like they're choosing what they're going to eat for lunch.
Well, and they've taken war and depersonalized the war. You go back to World War I when you had fighting in the trenches. Now you've got some pimply-faced kid in some nondescript building in South Florida playing a video game, dropping bombs via drones on villages that you discuss or that you reference, and going home and eating his chocolate chip ice cream and having a frappe and hey, I'm going to go to work tomorrow and do the same thing. This is the shame behind what they've depersonalized everything, but the march toward. I'm more worried today. I'm not worried about a nuclear bomb going off in my town, for example, or your town. Although certainly that could, and I suspect will ultimately happen. Maybe not my town or your town, but somewhere. I'm more worried about the subtle destruction that's taking place. Well, everyone's looking for that big event.
Yeah.
No.
Many people are looking for that big event.
Yeah.
Yet, meanwhile, through the subtlety, it's being chipped away at. Our order, our society is being chipped away at little by little. And all it could take, they're breaking it down to the point where that one little chip will bring the whole thing down. But you can't really, you don't see that. It's like the sand in the hourglass. You turn it around, you see the little grains of sand falling. Doesn't ever look like it's making a dent as you're staring at it, but over time it's going somewhere.
Did you ever notice, it's another thing too, if you stare at the hourglass, how the sand falls and it's, full on top, and the closer it gets to the to emptying, the faster it seems to go. That's the way life is, isn't it? For those of us over 50, doesn't it seem like just yesterday we were 30 or 25 or 21? We never thought we'd be where we're at. It's a fact of life, and it seems like every single day it just goes faster and faster and faster, and we're getting older, and time's just flying. And I remember my parents saying that. The older you get, the faster time flies, faster time goes. Being a young kid.
Except this month, for me at least.
Oh, yeah.
And probably next month because of the cold. I don't know. Every year it's like that. Usually it comes in February. You know, you look at the calendar and a week later you look again and it's like you're on the same day.
That's right.
But any other time of the year, it's just who knows where that time goes. Yes, just yesterday, though, I was doing something after the show, and I look at the clock. Oh, I went out to the store after I got home. It was bad here. We got like 6 inches of snow in a few-hour period, so it was real slippery because the trucks didn't get a chance to get out. And no, there wasn't a travel ban or in a state of emergency. We managed, no food runs, but it took me an hour to get home last night. And I got home and I realized I didn't stop at the store like I was supposed to. So the store was maybe a half mile from my house. It took me about 20 minutes. I forget what the point of that was, but...
What you do? You didn't feed the dogs for your dog's sled or what? I mean,
no,
you know?
Milk and eggs. I was supposed to get the milk and eggs and forgot. And you know, when you get up in the morning, you want to make breakfast. You don't want to have to get up and go right to the store. So it's nice to have the stuff there.
Right, but I guess the timing is just... Well, we were talking about the concept of time.
Oh, yeah. When I got home, put the stuff in the fridge. I looked at the clock. It said 1 o'clock. It was like a half hour just vanished. I don't know what happened. I didn't do anything that took my time up. I just didn't notice. It was weird. It was strange. No, I'm not saying there was a conspiracy or anything paranormal or bad happened. I'm just saying it was odd. It felt like I had missed a half hour of my day, or it was taken away from me. Yeah.
Well, you know, we're up against the top of the hour here, but it's interesting. You've got so many things taking place. Like we always say, you know, the headlines are just coming fast and furious. You've got today the Dow. The Dow closed down, I think, 236 points, and it's very possible as we look in tandem with that, oil as a commodity, gold as a commodity, there were some increases there. So that would suggest to me, perhaps, when this happens on a Friday, oftentimes there's an upcoming, some sort of announcement, some sort of event coming from the power brokers that something is in the offing. And you know, what does that mean? Once more, we want to reiterate that, you know, as Frank had mentioned in his email, as we started off with, folks, you know, things will happen, but it doesn't mean the world is going to end. Now, the world, as we are living in it, will certainly change and perhaps end a lifestyle that we are accustomed to. But so we have to be careful not to be willy-nilly, but we have to be very level-headed and say, look, here are some events that we need to pay attention to. The Super Bowl, we have to watch what is being conveyed, and put that in, not just watch it as a single solitary event, but put it in the context of previous Super Bowls and other mass media, Illuminati-sponsored mass media, highly watched events. What are they trying to tell us? The interpretations are going to differ, just like The Economist magazine. I'm still working on this because there's so much, and there's a lot of connectivity to other events. So it would be irresponsible to come out, you know, just say, "Wow, look at this, a nuclear bomb explosion that looks like on the cover." Well, what does that mean? That we get nuked? Well, calm down. Let's put some thought into this. Let's put some rational analysis into this, and that's what we have to do. Joe,
we are up against our top of the hour break. Oh, Okay.
We're getting reports of no sound.
Let me see here. No sound. No sound. Did you press a button?
No.
Chat saying no sound. I'm showing red. There it is.
We okay?
Mark, you got it.
Are we all right?
Hey, no sound. Anybody who's in sound or in chat that hears us, just say yes or no. Yes for sound, no. Obviously, you're not going to answer.
Yeah, that's...
Okay. People are getting it back. So if you can hear me, tell people to refresh. And it wasn't on our end. All things were open. All lines were open.
All systems go.
And, yeah, so that's pretty strange. Let me do something here. I have a way to check to see if there is interference coming through the actual Blog Talk feed. There might be. Yeah, anyway, okay. Yes, volume very low. Yes. Okay. So let me reiterate this. We all have souls. The people in Hollywood sell their souls for material wealth and fame. Some sell for titles, power. Some sell for the power of nations. Some sell for the power of corporations, other people. But the bottom line is, a soul is something that God breathed to life, and it is His. Now, the devil is claiming ownership of these souls that are willingly given to him for an exchange of goods and services on this earth. When Jesus was here, after this fasted for 40 days, he was approached by the devil. And the devil offered him all the kingdoms and everything of the world if he worshipped the devil. And Jesus said, "You shall not tempt the Lord your God." And left. The bottom line is, Satan was a created entity, just as humans are created entities. So as Satan is selling or collecting souls in exchange for material gains, I have a question I'm going to pose to anybody out there who's a non-believer, who's an atheist, who's a Luciferian, who believes the devil is the actual God. Why is it that Satan can only offer you riches and benefits in this world? Does his power, him being the ultimate, architect of everything, as you people say, is he limited in his power? Why not? Why doesn't he just change you into an immortal right there?
Well, I think, and I don't want to interrupt your presentation, but isn't that the ultimate? You're going to be immortal. It's just not in the place where you want to be.
Well, yes, he's making promises to these people that they'll keep them alive forever in the physical sense. He'll reign in a separate heavenly type kingdom that will be away from God. Whatever the excuse is, the bottom line, Satan was a created entity, just as the human beings his soul or their soul he claims. And selling the soul is just a mind-boggling thing, because how can you sell something that was freely given to you, yet is worth more than anything in this world that you could be given? But the only kingdom Satan will be in control of in the afterlife is the eternal fire. In this earth, he has the ability to appear as an angel of goodness. He has the ability to control the earth, the things in the earth, the wealth, the power, the fame, the tension. But it's only on this earth. So, as things come to a close, as we draw closer, prophecy continues to unfold upon Jesus' return in heavenly kingdom and government. As the old world, this world will be rolled up as a scroll, and a new world put in its place. Where will Satan's authority be? It will not be in heaven, space, or on that new world. So anybody who puts their belief that Satan is the real God, or is the answer to their eternal life without God, ask yourself, why can he only offer you things of this world in this world? It's because he was given power only over this world. There is a God above him who has the power over him. and he will be like every other creation. Unfortunately, I believe his fate is sealed. And I say unfortunately because the thought of any entity having to spend an eternity of torment is uncomfortable, to say the least.
Well, in the shadow of the Super Bowl, we have to realize that deals were made and signed, executed with the selling of one soul, and it is unfortunate. And we are hopefully attempting to help others retain, or at least, eternal salvation. Isn't that what it's all about? This life on this planet is just a flash in the pan.
And people who have quote unquote sold their souls, people who are on the fence about believing if God is real, it's time to get off that fence. Why put your hopes into a proven deceiver, liar, and accuser and hater of mankind, when you have been created, loved, and the Lord himself came here to take on the burden of all sin, of all mankind, to freely give us the opportunity to accept it and have eternal salvation? Is material things on this earth, comfort on this earth, or somewhat comfort on this earth, worth an eternity of damnation? And even for the people who can justify that and think there's a eternal life, eternal existence without or outside of God, away from God, think again.
Amen.
Satan is not the Lord of everything. Why is he scared of Jesus Christ in his name? Why are the demons scared of Jesus Christ in his name? Because they know who has the real power. They know who is the real God. They might be able to manipulate matter and events, but that's about the extent of it. And if we fall for the illusion of the senses, it'll be sad, because we were told and warned that the illusions would come and to not get ensnared in those traps. But the soul was created by God. Satan does not have ownership over your soul, nor will he,
unless you give
even
it
if no. How can a created entity, even if it was given to him, claim ownership of another created entity in the eyes of God? God says he will not be robbed. It wasn't theirs to give away, and it wasn't Satan's to claim. And that's all I wanted to say. I have a much more extensive writing, but
all right,
don't have that with me.
Well, folks, at this point, let me tell you about this. Very interesting as we proceed down this path. Have you? We talked at the break about getting healthy, and of course, it's important to us because we need to prepare. In preparation, let me just say this. I want to draw everyone's attention to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Take this opportunity to introduce, and we're very proud to do this, introduce their organic line of food products. For example, superfood. Let me just say this: organic and non-GMO kale powder, organic and non-GMO mixed berry juice powder. Do you juice? Do you go through and juice? You don't have to anymore. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, our partners in this radio endeavor, and click on the top menu there. It has organic. Folks, let me tell you something. This is not your father's juice, okay? This is superfood. It tastes great, and it does wonders for you. AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, proud to introduce their organic line. If you juice or if you're health conscious, and we know we've got to get it together, you can purchase organic kale powder and make a drink in the morning that will sustain you all day, using kale powder, using mixed berry juice powder and carrot juice powder together. you'll be flying through the day. You'll have more energy. You'll feel better. It's just a great product line. Just announcing, American Survival Wholesale is now in the organic line, and we're proud to be a part of this debut of these products. That's American Survival Wholesale, organic products. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, click on the organic menu button there, and it'll open up, and you'll see they even have coffee, certified organic, green coffee beans from Sumatra. It's graded premium, and this is also for your long-term caffeine needs. A 5-pound bag. AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Wanted to make sure this was kind of properly placed in the context of preparation and of health, saving souls, and also helping you save your functioning of your body. That's AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, their organic line. Very excited about it. Visit them today, as well as not just the organic products, but for all of your survival needs. It's AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Tell them Doug and Joe sent you. All right. Now,
we have about a half hour left.
Yeah, and it's great. The first part of the program, John came on, American Survival Wholesale, Honest Goodness Toffee, us, as the overseers of an initiative, a kitchen table type of a initiative where people can connect. Fantastic. If you didn't hear that part of the show, you can go back and listen to that. And then just the whole process of this mind control that we're being subjected to, and of course reading and addressing this roller coaster ride that all these watchmen and experts say, dollar's going to crash here and this is going to happen then, and it's a roller coaster. So we have to be very careful and very circumspect when we talk about all of this. So that's kind of a summation of the program. I'll, of course, go back and listen if you're just joining us. And I just want to say, Jacob out of Jacob out of the suburb of Jerusalem. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that name. You're listening live, and thank you for doing so. So just joining us, thank you, and stay safe, and God bless you. A lot of stuff taking place over in the Middle East as well, dominating the headlines. All right, Joe. News to get into in the last half hour. A lot of things taking place, but again, I just want to mention too. Once more, please pay attention to what's happening with the measles outbreak. Very important. It's not the measles necessarily as it is the folks are going to be. It's a criminalization of it will be the ultimate criminalization of parents who refuse to vaccinate their children. You're going to see forced vaccinations, which will lead to other things, but that's really the story behind the story there. And of course, I've been seeing this. I've had this sent to me 100 times, I think, over the last 48 hours. Shock as John Boehner opens house session with Islamic prayer to Allah. And of course, there's a video. Folks, you got to understand, this is, I think, 2 months old, maybe 3 months old. It happened in November, where John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, invited, an imam said this magic prayer, I'm sorry. Well, basically this prayer to Allah in the Congressional House, the chambers. Really? Imam Hamad Shebli, the religious leader of the Islamic Society of Central Jersey, Monmouth Junction, New Jersey to be exact, gave the opening prayer in the House back on November 13th, 2014. The opening prayer asked for the blessings of Allah, the most merciful, to fall upon America. Really. Look at how far we've come. But is anyone really surprised?
Yeah. Let me hit a few headlines here from the last few days that I have been just gathering and storing in my folder here for January, as we had some guests on, so did not have a chance the last couple of days to get into news that was current or important. But our economic freedom. Economic freedom was, the United States ranks not among the top 10 countries in the world for economic freedom, according to the Heritage Foundation's 2015 Index of economic freedom. Instead, it is 12th. I'm not going to list the countries who are ahead of the United States, but one is China, and a few other countries in the Netherlands and such. But the economic freedom is graded on a scale of 0 to 100, the overall score derived by averaging 10 economic freedoms with equal weight being given to each according to the index. While the U.S. remained unchanged over the year, the score has improved fractionally. But when the president took office in 2009, it was ranked 6 in economic freedom, the U.S. was. In 2015, it has fallen to 12th, lost 50% of its economic freedom. Well, how does this happen? Forced redistribution of wealth, unfair, unnecessary taxation, overtaxation, crony capitalism, banker fraud, basically the government robbing the people under a word they created and turned into a law. As the rest of the middle class is gutted, I expect this trend to continue. And on taxes, just as the FYI to those without health care, millions to owe Obamacare tax penalty this year as tax time comes around. Were you insured in 2014? It's time to pay the piper.
This is extremely important.
Some 3 to 6 million Americans will have to pay an Obamacare tax penalty for not having health insurance last year, Treasury officials said Wednesday. It's the first time they've been given estimates on how many people will be subject to the fine. $95 is the penalty, or 1% of your income above a certain threshold, roughly $20,000 a couple. So if you make $21,000 a couple, it's going to be 1% of your income. So you could end up owing the IRS a lot of money, they say. Take a married couple with a $100,000 income. Their bill comes to $800. Well, the penalty for remaining uninsured rises to the larger of $325 next year. Millions of Americans sit down in the coming weeks, compile their tax returns. They have to contend with now the Obamacare health insurance mandate for the first time. You know when they say the phrase, the devil's in the details?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why was the health care bill 110,000 pages or whatever?
It was big, and it was, you'll have to
because
pass it before you, or you have to pass it to
in plain English, just say what they wanted to do. Because it was so it was against the law. So what do? They hide the devil in the details. They hide the evil in the details.
That's right.
And now the law is passed. The stuff is being implemented, and we are going to see the effects from the Americans who do not have health care, and the ones that do, I believe.
Well, those people who are filling out their taxes this year, if you haven't done so, and most people put that off until the last possible moment, you're going to see new lines on your tax forms. And yes, there will be, if you did not have health insurance, you will be penalized. And where does that money go? Where does it go? Crickets. You hear where they think or they want you to believe it goes, but where does it really go? And the penalties will become substantially greater as the law remains in effect. And it's unfortunate at this point. Now, the damage to the economy has been done. The revamping, the restructuring of the insurance industry has been accomplished. There's just a whole big swath of damage to our economy. But that's all part of the plan. And to those conservatives who applauded the brilliance of Justice Roberts, what say you now? You going to still stick by that? Championing, what a fantastic, what a strategic move, right? You see, there's a war in the middle class. This is what it's all about. It's a war on the middle class. And when I say middle class, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about us. There is this extremely intense need and effort to bring us down, to take us out. because you can't have a middle class and have a communist one world order. And people laugh and say, communist, wait a minute. Communism was really the Red Scare. That was all choreographed by the power elite. And I've heard people say that. I've seen videos where they say, well, the communism really, it was just used as a method to control the masses, of the threat of communism, that is. Well, that's not entirely true. No, not at all. Communism is a tool, and if you read M. Stanton Evans' Blacklisted by History, you will find that communism was, in fact, a tool that was used to exploit the country, exploit us as a nation, but exploit the very people, the middle class. Yes, that does to restructure our financial system, our economy, and also to attack that really played a big role in attacking the Christian faith as well. Now, you've got to understand the bigger picture. You know, just real quick, I just want to reference something. John Coleman talks a lot about, if you've read any of John Coleman's books, one is the Committee of 300, The Conspirators' Hierarchy. He quotes H.G. Wells. I had to look here. Let me see here. H.G. Wells, he frequently laid out the plans and the plots and the schemes of, for example, the Committee of 300, or the Committee for a One World Government and a New World Order Dictatorship. I found this, and I thought, man, how relevant is this for today? He wrote this very quickly in The Open Conspiracy, as cited by John Coleman in the Committee of 300. H.G. Wells said this: the political world of open conspiracy must weaken, incorporate, and supersede existing governments. That's what's taking place today in the United States, in all of the Western countries. The open conspiracy is the natural inheritor of socialist and communist euphemisms. It may be in the control of Moscow before it is in the control of New York. The character of open conspiracy will now be plainly displayed. It will be a world religion. Isn't that interesting? This large, loose, assimilatory mass of groups and societies will definitely and obviously attempt to swallow up the entire population of the world and become a new human community. So, the reason I brought that up is the plans, plots, schemes, agenda of the people that were in power 100 years ago and 200 years ago, and the people decades ago. They're still in power. They are still in power. And their target is you. Their target is us. And you might say, well, I knew this already, but you know, we need to be well armed, because I go back to that email from Frank. And he's right. You know, we can't like jump around and scream and say, man, you know, everything's going to collapse. It's more subtle than that. And just as the devil is in the details of the health care bill, the devil is very subtle too. The devil is in the details of the takedown of our country, bit by bit. You know, it doesn't have to happen with a nuke. It doesn't have to happen with an EMP. It doesn't have to happen with a thud or a bolt of lightning. It doesn't have to happen in any manner that needs to be hyped. All you need to do is leave the door open. Did you ever leave the garage door open? Just a little bit, maybe not close it all the way. And find the next day a raccoon and a squirrel and a chipmunk in your garage, if you haven't. Oh, yeah. You just left the door open a little bit, and that's exactly where we're at today. We're seeing, and where does Islam fit in all this? Well, you've got a top-heavy, you've got the executive branch filled with Muslims. And, you know, that's the other thing, too. Islam and this open conspiracy, as I referenced, Islam is being used, and they're in part they're doing it as well by themselves, but they're being used as a tool to dismantle our constitutional republic and its happening every single day. So pay attention to the headlines of the Muslims who are setting up shop in your town, and there are, all across the United States. Obama and his people around him are bringing in Muslims and resettling the Muslims in various parts of the country. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands, unvetted. Now, combine that with the open borders, combine that with the measles outbreak, combine that changing the demographics of our country. So when you speak out against the Sharia, when you speak out against the tenets of Islam, when you speak out against Muslim terrorists, you will find yourself being able to speak out. Because how it's going to change? They are going to change the laws. So you will not be able to speak out. It's just that simple, just that quiet, just that subtle. And subtlety really is the friend of the Luciferian plot. Now, you might not believe it. Doesn't matter what you believe. Doesn't matter what I believe. All that matters is how things are unfolding. And there you have it.
Yeah. Let's take a few phone calls. Is there people lined up in the queue?
Let's rock.
All right, we're going to start with area code 724. You're our first caller this evening. Welcome to the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Joe. Hi, Joe and Doug.
Hey. What's up?
Hey. What's up? I'm calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Not far from you guys.
That's right.
Yeah, right down the road, actually. I went to Edinburgh University.
Okay.
Yeah, not actually, probably less than an hour or half hour from you, actually.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm that 40-something crowd, probably more like Joe's age, right? And I grew up in a really awkward situation, but my dad was saved. I was also placed in foster homes because, for unfortunately horrible reasons, but my dad was really sick. And over the years, I've met people and I've witnessed to people, and I wasn't always a strong Christian, and I can't say that I always knew the Bible inside and out, thank God, but I'm learning as I go too. But one of the things my dad had told me, and he was much like you, Doug, he was a Marine Corps engineer. He would have probably hung with like you and Stan Deo, definitely, and maybe Alex Jones. But they all made cracks at my dad. He's been passed away since 2000, and this is before 9/11. He says, Jennifer, when things start to change, start heading west for the mountains. So you guys disappear in Canada. And, I never thought that day would come. I never thought the days would ever come, because I remember having that conversation, listening to him. He was watching In Search of Leonard Nimoy in 1970. Yeah. But they called him a conspiracy theorist and a crackpot. But you know what? A lot of people always stopped and said, what he's saying, he's on to something. It's not as if they call you conspiracy theorists, but they know that something isn't right, and you're close, but not close enough, or everybody's always sizing each other's information up. The thing is it's not hard to believe unless your eyes are playing tricks on you and you're colorblind or you can't see certain things, then maybe you need your eyes checked. But if everybody comes with different things, and we might explain it differently, but we're all coming from different directions. We're all coming from different angles, but we're all relatively on the same page. And this information you always bring forward, it is more of the same. It just it plays out in different ways. It plays out in maybe Katy Perry making a Super Bowl appearance, and it's not far-fetched to think that there is a diabolical backdrop. It's not far-fetched because it's always been one of those things that you hear about in the rap industry long ago, before it was rap. So we knew it wasn't what it appeared, okay? But they were recruiting kids right in the urban neighborhoods in Pittsburgh for the New World Order, NWO. It was the big thing. It was how they played their rap music, and it's definitely come a lot. It's gone a lot further than that today, but we all knew in the backdrop that there was a significance, there was a hidden meaning. There's always these hidden things that you're just not going to be so obvious, but it's hidden enough for you to know that it's there. So I don't know, maybe from my dad's vantage point, which he would have been 83 at this point, or from somebody that's been through some of it and saw some of it from my age group, or, you know, it doesn't really necessarily mean you have to come in as an expert. Most of us see enough out there can get it, come from different angles, and all get that we're all on the right page. We're just coming at it with different perspectives. And if we could quit questioning ourselves so much, or trying to justify or to try to explain it, you know, I got to the point I just can't I can't convince people or persuade them. They're going to have to come to that realization at some point, if they ever do, and maybe the Holy Spirit will draw them at that point. But that's just my comment when we listen to all this.
Thank you for that. And I think that a lot of times, you know, we ourselves, you and others, listeners, and I mean, we spend a lot of time in defensive positions of our stance, of our, you know, we bring forth facts, but then we find ourselves defending ourselves, saying, well, you know, defending ourselves against the accusations of being whack jobs, nut jobs, and, you know, loons about conspiracies. And I think you're right. I think, you know, we have to stop defending ourselves and just keep plowing forward.
Yeah, it's just let's push forward to the goal. And sometimes I think we do it just because you're being polite, and we're just trying to do it the classiest, most professional way. But I've gotten to the point where, you know, like I hear a lot of radio hosts. I listen to Paul Begley. He doesn't have to apologize. This is all there. The facts are out there. It's up to those people to either come on board, get it. I mean, I'm not going to coddle anybody anymore. I mean, it's an ugly truth, but until we confront those ugly truths, we can't really see the true nature and how beautiful Jesus Christ, what he is saving us from, you know. And that's only from trial and error, guys, you know, and I know that this is not easy. This is not easy subjects to tackle, and it's sometimes hard to go to bed at night knowing. But that's when we know we have to make sure that this is what God wants us to do. Are we going out on a limb? Are we putting too much of ourselves out there to a point where are we spiritually fit, you know? So That's when we have to check each other and say, hey, listen, that's where the encouragement is spiritually. Let's make sure we're all spiritually fit for what's ahead of us. And that means as a group, that's Standeo and you guys. That's us as listeners. If we just know that we're coming from different directions, and we go forward with this, we know we're together. We might be different, but we're together on it. So,
well, God bless you for thank you. Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to have one question. Your father.
What?
Your father obviously sounded like a marvelous man. He knew things were going to change, huh? He knew things were going to take a hard left turn.
Yeah, in the 1960s, he said he worked in the computer engineering. He told me about the money, rainbow money, how it was going to have a rainbow tint to it. He said there was something about, they call it the colored money. He also said about the microchip. He knew about that. I mean, he talked about that all the time. He said that's going to be the implementation of the mark of the beast. And wow. He always showed me the scan barcodes, and that was in 1979. That was during Jimmy Carter's administration. I was 9 years old, and I was like, well, Daddy, are you going to die? And he goes, no, but if I'm not here, you know, I mean, I'm 9 years old, and, I mean, I knew this was about, and you know what, luckily my dad came to me at 9, because it wasn't until I was 19 I realized how serious this was going to get, and he brought forward stuff to me at 19 and 29, you know what I mean? He passed away when I was 29, but when I was 19, I met a girl who her son was being molested, and it was so diabolical, and there were so many powerful people involved. And now we hear about pedophile rings today. You couldn't talk about it in '91. The way you're hearing about it on the internet today, we were petrified, you know. So a lot of this stuff has been going on. It's just you're hearing about it because the internet is, well, people know about it. That's the thing. A lot of people know about it. They just don't talk about it. So
that's very true. Well, Jennifer, God bless you. Thank you. You know, thanks for that. What a wonderful call. And I got to tell you, you prove or reassert the fact that we've got just a tremendously well-informed audience. God bless you. Thank you so much for your call.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, maybe we're going to have some coffee sometime in Edinburgh or someplace in between in our travels. That'd be nice. But wow, fantastic caller, Joe. She's great. I mean, you know, and she's right too. You know, I think that's the thing. She's right. We can't. We got to stop defending ourselves. And I think that maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Working through this mentally, as you can tell. Live mentally. Maybe we just stop defending ourselves, and you know what? It is what it is. I mean, you want to argue with facts?
We have over abundance of absolutely the most loving, positive emails and responses that we
absolutely
can look at. And I was talking with Greg Jackson about this, but you know, we do tend to focus on the, you know, if a half of 1% is not positive, we tend to focus on that.
Well,
we have
no
reason to do that because the majority, the vast majority, by far, are
very positive.
Such a blessing.
Oh, yeah.
Worth 10,000 times more than being ridiculed. Now, constructive criticism of correction is fine.
Oh, yeah. Look,
but it seems like there's a problem. People don't understand or know how to tell somebody that they've mistaken. I mean, I've seen it. There's our listeners. I mean, you know, Joe, you've said this and this, and I got to say that you're wrong. Here's the scripture. Some people can, but others get. This goes back to the frustration and the emotions.
That's true.
Yeah. They don't know how to do so without being, without saying it with authority and in a way that comes off as, you know, being mean or angry or self-righteous.
Well, and I think that's a life lesson. I think that in life in general, we need to know how to do that. Not only accept criticism, but give pointers with tact, class, and integrity. But yeah, but the last caller was absolutely correct, and it's interesting too. Back in 1979, when she was 9, her dad saying about the rainbow money, and people and folks, the money, and we touched on this earlier, in the subtlety, the changes in the appearance of money. You know, oftentimes we presume other people know, but that's to condition us. If you live in the north part of the United States, you know, occasionally you might have gotten or you might have Canadian money, and years ago that looked like funny money compared to the U.S. dollar. Not the U.S. dollar, you know, the Federal Reserve notes or anything, but it looked like funny money or play money. And you know, I remember hearing people say, "Oh, that's it's like monopoly money." Well, we're there now. I mean, worldwide, the currency, the fiat currencies, have been changed, and it's to condition us ultimately for this full change into a global currency, one world currency, and ultimately into a digital currency.
And just think of the progression of money throughout history. You know, it was a necessity, a tool used to exchange goods for services. And they've taken all the problems that currencies had, from jealousy to, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they made it worse by what they have done. Turned it into an idol, a class, a symbol of your...
well, just look at the $1 bill. I mean, the reverse of that.
The symbol of your worth compared to the rest of the world. They turn it into
as a measure of wealth. Yeah,
and now
that too.
So they created the true problems with the greed, the classes, all these different areas where money is the factor or difference between you being considered a good high society type person versus a homeless, worthless bum, and now they're going to bring the whole thing down and offer the solution.
Of course, the phoenix on the reverse of the phoenix as a symbol signifies that it's not an eagle, folks. It's a phoenix. They're going to burn everything down. They're going to burn it to the ground so they can rebuild it in that Babylonian Tower of Babel, Babylonian image. That's what's ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so and one more thing too to keep an eye on. Bloomberg is really going forth with the anti-gun movement, and he's modeling this. Former mayor Bloomberg is modeling this anti-gun agenda after the Obamacare. In other words, he is counting on this lack of transparency, lies, and the ignorance of every single American, and especially those who don't own guns or believe that they are bad, to change the ability to own guns. And at the epicenter of this is, the national gun ban media. They will exploit tragedies. They will use fear, the lies, to propagate their agenda to non-gun owners, and especially during the election time. And that's the playbook from which they operate. But gun ownership today is growing in popularity. So what they've got to do, they have got to do something to advance their anti-gun ownership agenda, anti-civil rights agenda. This is happening right now. And even some gun owners who are very gullible, who will say, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm not against a universal background check, but they will use this, and please pay attention to this. They will use the NICS system, the National Instant Credit or National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS. They will use this universal background check to really as a footstool for a higher level of gun restricting gun ownership, until the point. Again, we're talking about subtlety here. We're talking about incremental steps. It doesn't have to be a gun ban today. We're going to confiscate everything. No, they can legislate the freedoms away. And this is exactly what Bloomberg and company is doing. So please keep an eye on that. Watch, for example, you can find information at the NRA about Bloomberg's initiatives, but the playbook is much like the healthcare. Stupid Americans, and I don't mean that disparagingly, that's what they say, ignorant Americans, and this lack of transparency. Universal background checks for full registration, ultimately for confiscation, taking place, coming to a city, town, state near you.
Absolutely. Area code 352. Oh, wait, you know what? 352. You have 60 seconds. We are at the end of the program.
Oh, my gosh. Go ahead. Close this out.
Oh, I had a million things to say.
I'm sorry.
That time was taken away again.
I'll say it real fast. I heard Obama sending people over to try to unseat Bibi in the elections.
Yes.
With probably our money, right? My pain clinic doctor, I'm on disability, so I'm unfortunately in the system, wanted my DNA for how my medicines assimilate in my body, which ones assimilate better.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that's not the reason. And I wanted to share, too, that when I gave my testimony in Apopka First Baptist Church 24 years ago, I said I could die for Jesus Christ, and I never thought the day would come when it actually may happen here.
And, what...
Wow.
And life is so hard here. My son's a landscaper, and the plants are dying because they won't stop spraying us so hard with chemtrails. I have to pray every morning to protect my family for what we're breathing and, eating. And And
wow.
Nathan Leal's dream about the Russian bear, I had one too, quite a while back. It was 7/25/2013. I was in a small camp with one of those sheds that they just roll in and drop them, and I was living in that. And there was a Asian family next to me that couldn't speak very good English, and there was a Russian bear guarding us, which sounds so crazy. I woke up breathless from this dream. I kept trying to tell the Asian family to stop running around the sheds without looking first because I was afraid the Russian was going to hurt us.
Interesting how that
lines dream, up. We ended up throwing a burlap bag of apples over a fence by a lakeshore to try to get him to leave. And then before I woke up, God told me it wasn't a Russian bear, it was the Russian people.
Wow.
They were guarding us.
Ma'am,
the show just ended, and
I'll tell you what. If you can, we've got your number. If you can call back on Monday, we'll give you the time needed. I just want to say thank you so much for the call. That's very interesting, and very interesting about the DNA. My goodness.
Please call
I'm
back.
Glad I got to share it.
Thank you so much. A lot of people need to hear that. Caller, thank you so much. And like I said, if you call back, we've got your phone number. We'll put you at the top of the line and give you the time. I just want to say we're up against it. Have a great weekend, ma'am. And
God
ladies
bless.
and gentlemen, God bless. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Until tomorrow.